table was set beautifully. Linen napkins, real candles, the good china my mother only brings out when she wants to impress someone. I remember thinking that was strange. It was just supposed to be a family dinner, just us. No guests. I found out later why the table looked so nice. It wasn't for me. It was so I'd feel small by comparison. I drove 40 minutes to get there. I'd just finished a long week at work. I'm a paralegal, and we had a deposition that ran 3 days over schedule, and I genuinely thought my mother had invited me because she missed me. We hadn't seen each other since Thanksgiving, and that hadn't gone great either. But I told myself things would be different. I always told myself that. My older brother was already there when I arrived. He lives 20 minutes closer and somehow always beats me anyway. My sister-in-law was in the kitchen helping my mother carry out the salad. My dad was in his chair by the window. He smiled when I walked in, that tired smile he's had for years, the one that never quite reaches his eyes anymore. My brother looked up from his phone and said, without any greeting, "You're late." "I'm 2 minutes late," I said. "Mom said 6? It was 6,004. I sat down. I told myself it was fine. I poured myself some water and asked my dad how his week had been. He started to answer, and my brother cut him off to talk about something at his job. I focused on my water glass. This was normal. This was just how dinner went. The food came out. My mother makes good pot roast. I'll give her that. We passed the dishes around, and for a few minutes it was quiet in the way family dinners can be quiet, not peaceful, just suspended. Like everyone's waiting to see who's going to say the thing first. My brother said it first. "So?" He set down his fork. "Mom tells me you turned down the promotion." I hadn't told my mother anything about a promotion. I mentioned once, in passing during a phone call 3 weeks earlier, that I wasn't sure I wanted to take on a supervisory role right now because the hours would increase significantly and I was already stretched thin. That was the whole conversation. 30 seconds of me thinking out loud. "I didn't turn anything down," I said. "I'm still deciding." "Still deciding." He repeated it like it was funny. "You've been at that firm for 4 years. I know how long I've been there. I'm just saying. At some point you have to commit to something." My mother made a soft sound, the kind she makes when she agrees with someone but doesn't want to seem like she's piling on. I looked at her. "Did you want to add something?" "I just worry about you," she said. "You've always had trouble making decisions." "That's not." I stopped. I picked up my fork. "I appreciate the concern. We're not criticizing," my brother said. "We're just being honest. There's a particular kind of gaslighting that happens at family dinner tables across America every single night. It doesn't look like abuse from the outside. It looks like concern. It sounds like honesty. But what it actually is, what I know now that I didn't fully understand then, is control. Dressed up in the language of love so that if you push back, you're the one being difficult. I sat through the rest of dinner. I ate my pot roast. My sister-in-law asked me about a TV show we both watch, and that was the only 15 minutes of the evening that felt normal. My dad fell asleep in his chair after dessert, which he does now. And my brother made a joke about how I'd probably do the same if I had a real job. I laughed. I don't know why. Maybe because not laughing felt like too much to explain. I drove home in the dark and I thought, I'm 31 years old and I just let my family spend 2 hours making me feel like a child. Again, what I didn't know, what I had absolutely no idea about, was that while I was sitting at that table letting them make me feel small, they had been using my name, my credit, and my financial identity for the better part of 2 years. I want to explain something because I know what people think when they hear a story like this. They think, how did you not notice? How does someone not see their own money disappearing? I've asked myself that question more times than I can count, and the honest answer is that it happened slowly. And it happened in a context where I had been conditioned not to ask questions. My family handled money as a collective for most of my childhood. My parents co-signed things for my brother when he was starting out. My brother co-signed things for my parents when their credit got complicated in 2008. Documents got passed around. Signatures got collected. It was presented as normal family business, the way some families share a Netflix login or a Costco membership. Except it was financial instruments and real estate, and I was too young and too trusting to understand what any of it meant. When I turned 24 and got my first real job, my mother called me and said she needed my help with something. She explained that they had a rental property, a condo about 2 hours away, in a mountain town, the kind of place people weekend at, that was in a complicated situation because of some old financing. And if I could just be added to the title as a co-owner, it would help them refinance and get a better rate. It's just paperwork, she said. You won't owe anything. It's just to make the numbers work. I signed the paperwork. That was my first mistake, and I didn't know it was a mistake for 7 years. Over the next few years, there were other documents. A credit card my mother asked me to be added to as an authorized user. For emergencies. A car loan my brother needed help qualifying for. An LLC that my dad wanted to start for a side project that never actually launched, but my name was on it as a registered agent because, as he explained it, I was the most organized one in the family. None of these things felt like fraud when they were happening. They felt like family. They felt like the way you help people you love. And because my credit was good and nothing was obviously going wrong, I didn't look too closely. I checked my main bank account. I filed my taxes. I didn't pull my full credit report more than once a year, and when I did, I'd see things I didn't fully recognize and tell myself I'd look into it later. I never looked into it. The dinner was in October. The unraveling started in November. I was applying for a mortgage, not a huge one. I'd found a small townhouse in my price range, and I'd saved up a solid down payment and my income was stable, so I thought it would be relatively straightforward. I sat down with a loan officer at a credit union I'd been a member of for years, and she pulled my credit, and she went quiet in a way that made my stomach drop. There are some things here I want to go over with you, she said. She turned her screen toward me. There was the condo. Not just as a co-owner, but as the primary borrower on a refinanced loan I had never agreed to be on. The rate was higher than the original. The loan amount was higher than the original. Someone had refinanced it and put me on it as the primary, and I had not signed those documents, or if I had, I did not remember doing so, and I had not understood what I was signing. There was the credit card. It had a balance of $11,400. I was not an authorized user on it. I was the account holder. There was the LLC. It had 3 outstanding vendor invoices attached to my personal credit through a personal guarantee I had apparently signed in 2021. I do not remember signing a personal guarantee in 2021. There was a second car loan, not the one I'd known about, a second one, for a different vehicle that had gone 30 days past due 6 months ago and been brought current just before it would have shown up as a serious delinquency. I sat in that office for a long time. The loan officer was kind. She gave me a list of steps. She told me to get a full tri-merge credit report, contact all 3 bureaus, document everything, and consider speaking with a consumer protection attorney. She said what she could and couldn't tell me, and she chose her words carefully, but I understood what she was saying underneath them. Someone had been using your credit, possibly for years. And some of what they did may have crossed a legal line. I drove home. I didn't call anyone. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and I pulled every document I could find. I'm a paralegal. I know how to find documents. I know how to read them. And sitting alone in my kitchen that night, for the first time in my adult life, I read everything. The condo refinance paperwork had my signature on it. I looked at the signature for a long time. It looked like mine. It had the right loops, the way my capital letters connect. But I could not remember sitting at a closing table for a refinance. I could not remember a notary. I could not remember any of the specific language that would have been on those pages. My mother had my signature on file from other documents. She'd had it for years. She's meticulous about paperwork, ironically. She keeps everything. I had watched her scan documents and save them digitally. She had been doing this since before I had any idea why that might matter. The LLC personal guarantee was worse. The language in it was buried in page 4 of a 6-page operating agreement. I had signed the operating agreement. I remembered signing it, but I had not read page 4 carefully, and page 4 made me personally liable for any debts the LLC incurred if the company couldn't cover them. The company, of course, had never made any money because the Psy project never launched, but it had incurred debts, supplier agreements, a small equipment lease, that were now sitting in my name. I kept a notepad next to my laptop. I wrote down numbers. I added them up. I added them up again because the first total didn't seem real. Between the condo loan, the credit card, the LLC debts, and the second car loan, there was just over $94,000 of financial obligation connected to my name that I had not knowingly agreed to carry. $94,000. I closed my laptop. I went to bed. I lay there in the dark, and I thought about the dinner table and the linen napkins and my brother saying, "At some point you have to commit to something," and I thought, okay, you're right. Let's talk about commitment. I called the consumer protection attorney the next morning. She specialized in credit fraud and identity theft, and her office was 20 minutes from my apartment. I told her everything. I brought the printouts. She went through them with a yellow highlighter. "Some of this is fraud," she said flatly. "Some of it is you signing things you didn't read carefully. The question is which, and whether you want to pursue it criminally or just clean it up and move on." She explained my options: disputing the debts with the bureaus, filing a police report, which I would need to do even if I didn't want to press charges, because the bureaus require documentation, sending cease communications letters, and in the case of the condo, which was the biggest piece, potentially taking action to have my name removed from the title, which would require either cooperation from my family or legal proceedings. "What do you want the outcome to be?" she asked. I thought about it. I thought about all the dinners, all the small cuts, all the years of being the one they called when something needed to be handled, and the one they mocked when something needed to be praised. "I want my name back," I said. "All of it." She nodded. She clicked her pen. "Let's get started." I did not call my mother. I did not call my brother. My father has health issues that make confrontation complicated, and I made a deliberate choice to protect him from this part. What I did was work. Quietly. Methodically. I sent a certified letter to my mother and my brother informing them that I had retained legal counsel and that I was in the process of reviewing all financial obligations tied to my name. The letter was measured and professional. It did not accuse anyone of anything. It simply stated that I was requesting their cooperation in removing my name from any accounts, loans, or titles where I had not provided informed consent, and that failure to cooperate would result in formal legal action. My mother called me 17 times in the next 48 hours. I did not answer. My brother texted, "What is wrong with you? You're going to destroy this family over paperwork?" I did not respond. On day 3, my attorney sent a formal letter to the property management company overseeing the condo. Because I was on the title, and because the current lease arrangement was generating rental income that was not being reported to me as a co-owner, we had standing to demand an accounting of all income and expenses related to the property going back to when my name was added to it. I'll be honest, I hadn't even known they were renting it out. I thought it was a vacation property the family used occasionally. They had been renting it out for 2.5 years, at $1,800 a month. None of that money had ever come to me. None of it had been reported to me, and as a co-owner, I was entitled to my share. The accounting came back. 2.5 years, 42 months, at $1,800 per month. Minus documented expenses, which my attorney reviewed and found partially inflated. My share of the legitimate net rental income came to just under $28,000. I requested it in writing. In the meantime, I disputed the credit card account. The card issuer, once I provided documentation that I had never applied for primary account status and had not authorized the charges over a certain threshold, opened a fraud investigation. The outcome of that took several months, but the initial hold on my liability was placed within 2 weeks. The LLC debts were harder. I ended up negotiating directly with the vendors because the amounts were small enough that fighting them legally would have cost more than settling. I settled both for less than face value. Vendors, it turns out, would often rather get something than spend money trying to collect. And I kept the documentation. The car loans I disputed as having been opened with my information without proper consent. One was closed without significant issue. The other took longer and required the police report, which I had filed at my attorney's instruction. My credit score, which had been in the high 700s before all of this, had been pulled down by the late payment on the second car loan and the high utilization on the card. It took 8 months to fully recover. 8 months. That's how long it takes to fix a decade of slow damage when you finally see it clearly and move decisively. My mother eventually hired her own attorney. He sent a letter suggesting that I had been a willing participant in all of the financial arrangements and that I had benefited from my association with the family's assets. My attorney responded, "I will not go into the details of that correspondence except to say that it ended with my name being removed from the condo title in exchange for a settlement payment to me that covered my share of the rental income, minus certain credits my mother's attorney negotiated. The settlement amount was more than I had expected them to agree to. I think they agreed to it because the alternative, a full accounting in a court proceeding with all the documentation laid out, would have been worse for them." My brother sent me one more text after the settlement closed. It said, "I hope you're happy." I put my phone down and I thought about that question seriously for a moment. Yes, actually, I am. I bought the townhouse, not the one I'd originally been looking at. By the time my credit was repaired, that one had sold. But a better one, as it turned out. Bigger kitchen, better neighborhood. A small yard I didn't know I needed until I had it. I sat in my new backyard on a Sunday in late spring drinking coffee, and I tried to find the feeling I thought I'd feel. The triumphant one, the I told you so satisfaction, and mostly what I found was something quieter. Relief. The particular relief of not having to brace yourself anymore. I thought about all the years I had walked into that house carrying the knowledge, somewhere below the surface, that something was not right, that I was being used in ways I didn't fully understand, that the love was conditional, and the price of belonging was a kind of self-erasure I'd never fully consented to. I don't talk to my mother anymore. I don't talk to my brother. My dad and I have a quiet arrangement. He calls me on Sunday afternoons and we talk about baseball and whatever book he's reading, and we do not talk about any of the rest of it. And I have made my peace with that, because I love him, and he is running out of Sundays, and some bridges deserve to stay half-built. There are people who will say I went too far, that I could have handled it privately, within the family, without lawyers and letters and settlements. And maybe they're right that there was another path, but I tried the quiet path for years. I tried swallowing the hurt and showing up anyway. I tried laughing at jokes that weren't jokes and accepting honesty that was actually cruelty and being the person they called when something needed fixing and the person they mocked when something needed celebrating. The paperwork was just the moment I stopped. I found a quote once in a book I read years ago that I've come back to a lot since all of this happened. I don't remember it exactly, but the idea was this: the people who want you to stay small will always call it love, right up until the moment they realize you've grown too big to control. Then they'll call it betrayal. I've been called a lot of things in the past year. Ungrateful, cold, difficult, a woman who destroyed her family over paperwork. But here's what I know. My name is mine. My credit is mine. The money I earn and the accounts I hold and the documents I sign, those belong to me, and I decide what happens with them, and I decide who gets access to them, and I will never again sign something I haven't read, and I will never again confuse someone's need to use me with someone's love for me. Those two things are not the same. I know that now. That townhouse, the one with the small yard I didn't know I needed, I own it outright in my name. Just my name, nobody else's. And every morning when I make my coffee and sit in that kitchen, I feel exactly one thing: free.